Now,
on News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:07. It's O'Connor and Company on a super duper busy Wednesday morning. They keep us busy here on this job, Julie Gunlock, because the Biden family is so corrupt and the administration is so corrupt, and now they're employing Iranian spies to advise them on the nuclear deal. Coming up at 7:05, James Rosen covers the White House for Newsmax. Talk about Joe Biden tripping down the stairs and standing on the picket line for 10 minutes. He's a union guy. 7:35, Senator Roger Marshall will join us on the looming government funding crisis. 8:05, Bill O'Reilly. 8:35, Liz Wheeler. That's it. I'm Larry Connor. She's Julie Gunlock. Well, I was just going to say,
That's it.
How long into the interview with Bill O'Reilly will it take for him to say, well, I first did,
All
that's
right,
my favorite part. No,
I know.
It's an endearing quality, actually. And he would be the first to laugh at himself about it, right?
Yeah.
You remember those great appearances with when Mary Catherine Ham would be on every week with Bill O'Reilly? That was the best television, where she would have to well, let me explain the internet to you, Bill. Love that. All right. Again, because we're so excited about returning to the norms in our society and righting all of the wrongs of the horrific 4 years of the Trump presidency, we want to highlight some news from around the country in some of your favorite cities. I mean, look at these beautiful cities that we all used to love, like San Francisco and Seattle and Portland. And, of course, New York. Well, these used to be beautiful cities, gorgeous. My parents live just outside of Portland. Yeah. And I'm going to visit.
My grandfather lived outside of Seattle.
Yeah, beautiful. And San Francisco, probably one of the most, now just a cesspool.
Now it's just a drug den.
Because we've returned to the norms. We had to right the wrongs of the Trump administration. And you've seen how in many of these stores, the new status is to just stand back and let people go in and shoplift whatever they want. You go in, you take the garbage bag, you clean out the shelves, you leave. It's audacious.
Yeah.
They forget about not caring about the security cameras that are there. They don't care about people just making a video of them and letting it go. They don't care.
No.
This is happening in Target as well. It's widespread, outright theft all over the place. And, the one thing after the George Floyd riots where stores were getting – you remember the riots in Baltimore? Yeah. What was the main target? What was the main, the epicenter? A CVS. Yeah. A CVS.
Well, CVS is one of these interesting stores where it is a drugstore, but they have actually a lot of food. Mm-hmm. So you can go there. I mean, there's.
Well,
CVS.
I don't think they were looting it for food.
No, I know. But I'm saying that why they're important in these neighborhoods is they serve as sort of, because we are going to hear all about the food deserts. We used to be concerned about food deserts, and apparently you don't see a connection between the creation of a food desert and massive theft, which drives stores out. So a lot of grocery stores have left, but CVS's have remained, and they are really critical because they have these large sort of grocery sections where people can go and get basics.
Just basics. You're right. And Cheetos. Yes. And it's and I remember the mantra that you would hear all the time after these riots. I'll set it on the air. My oldest daughter flirted with a very, very woke phase of her life. She was going to UCLA, right? Yeah. And we were having a friendly father-daughter discussion about the riots.
Did she end up in her room?
BLM things. You go right to your dorm. And I said, I understand you're on board with Black Lives Matter and the marches and the protests, fine. But what about the riots? What about the arson? What about the burning? What about the violence? What about all of the
theft? She did the Jean Valjean.
No, she gave me these big companies have insurance.
Oh, I know.
Oh boy, that's when I lost it. But you have people in your life, just like my oldest girl, who's much better now, by the way. Now that she's in the working world and seeing the reality of life, it happens. It happens
fast. Who told me to take my money?
That's insurance. They'll tell you this, and they'll say, that's why they have insurance, and it's fine. It doesn't matter. Okay, well, here's the repercussions of what really happens, even for companies that have insurance like CVS. CVS announced yesterday that they will close about 900 stores in the next year. Target as well. That's 10% of all of their stores. They're going to an online strategy, and one of the reasons is because of the theft, because of the loss, because of the damage of what's going on in these cities.
And again, these are going to close. Where do you think these are going to close? Where? Rodeo Drive? No, they're going to close in some of the poorest areas of these major urban centers.
That's right.
Okay, and this is where these people are not going to be able to get their.
A little black child in the inner city gets sick with some kind of infection, and the doctor prescribes amoxicillin.
And the mom's going to have to take it.
Mom will not be able to get it.
Or mom will have to spend most of her day going across the city on a bus to a CVS that is open in a better part of the city.
That's right.
You know, when Nordstrom closed in San Francisco, when Apple stores closed, I mean, it's like, yeah, that's a sign of the economy and crime. Yes, this is a problem. But people need to understand stores like CVS and Target, they are often in areas of need.
Yeah, Target specifically is closing 9 stores in those cities that I noted: Seattle, Portland, Oakland, San Francisco, and New York City. What do those cities have in common?
Yeah.
If you think about the local government there.
Yeah.
Decades and decades and decades and decades of Democrat
But again,
control.
what we're going to get like a Michelle Obama figure who comes forward and says, these companies don't care about poor people. They're creating food deserts.
Target.
And yet these are the same. Michelle Obama's the same person who's, sort of behind the defund the police.
Of course.
movement.
Target put out a statement saying, we know that our stores serve an important role in these communities, but we can only be successful if the working and shopping environment is safe for all. Well, guess what, Target? We know who you're giving your corporate donations to politically. We know how woke Target. Remember, Target kicked the Salvation Army off of their front door
Target
during
with
Christmas.
Their chest binders and tucking underwear.
That's right. Target they're out of Minnesota and Minneapolis specifically. They're one of the wokest, leftist, Democrat funding corporations that you're going to find out there. So when you say, if the working and shopping environment isn't safe where your stores are, who created that environment and who empowered the politicians to put through the policies that created that environment? Target is getting exactly what they deserve.
Yeah.
And frankly, so are the people in those communities. But, Orange Man bad.
That's right.
I'm sorry that I have to keep framing this within the context of we have to right the wrongs of the 4 years of the Trump administration. But the fact of the matter is the 4 years of the Trump administration brought you the lowest unemployment in the inner city, the lowest unemployment for Black Americans Hispanic Americans, a thriving economy, and law and order.
And don't forget, many of these corporations fund BLM.
Of course they do.
With
a gun to their head.
Look, they gave a ton of money to these groups that were anti-police.
That's right.
We know that. And now they're pulling out of areas where there hasn't been police. So there you go. If you're gonna support these candidates who run on these anti-police platforms and are promoting chaos in the cities, you're going to close 900 stores. And I look forward to those leftists who you funded blaming you for food deserts. Good luck. Good luck with everything.
Just want to reiterate, it's just 3 years into the Biden administration, and the norms have been restored.
Right. The grown-ups are in charge.
We have spies working for Iran in our State Department. We've got 200 cross-dressers stealing luggage with high clearance in the Department of Energy. And now we have CVS closing 900 stores across the country because they've lost so much with theft, rampant theft that goes, forget about unprosecuted, unarrested, and uninvestigated because the norms. It's 6:15 now. WMAL traffic and weather every 10 minutes. First on the fives. Hold on, I want to check something. Oh, there's no mean tweets this morning. So,
thank goodness.
Oh, that makes everything. I feel so much better now when I go have Chardonnay
mom
at lunch.
Getting on that bus to go across town, I'm sure she feels great.
No, it's more important about the mom who goes, down the street to the very expensive luncheon with her friends who feel really good about voting Democrat and putting a sign on their yard. Yes, I'm talking to every one of Julie's neighbors right now. Here's Jamie Whitten in the Hadid Carpet Cleaning Traffic Center.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Traffic and weather brought to you by Hadid Carpet Cleaning.
Weeknights with Mark Levin, 6 to 9 p.m.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Well, there's this woman named Cassidy Hutchinson. She used to work in the Trump White House, and she's just a flat-out liar. We know this, first of all, because her big claim to fame, if you remember, during the January 6 hearings, was that she reported that Donald Trump, President of the United States, on January 6 actually somehow pushed through the bulletproof glass in the Beast to wrestle the driver, and he was fighting with him, choking with him, and trying to fight the steering wheel out of his hands.
But she also said he reached forward. I mean, if you know the Beast, I always think of the rubber band hands and the Incredibles.
Yes.
You know, the mom who has the yeah.
So we already did. So of course
She's not even a good liar.
No, and that's why she was featured on MSNBC last night.
Right.
Why do you think your fellow Republicans want him more than they want anybody else as their next candidate for the White House?
I can't speak to the psyche of I won't say my fellow Republicans, because I do not think that we are a part of the same Republican Party. I still consider myself a Republican. I consider myself a Republican in the sense of Senator Mitt Romney and the Reagan Republican Party. I believe that the Republican Party needs a strong conservative party. I do not believe that Mr. Trump is a strong Republican. But in this next election cycle, in my opinion, it's the make or break moment for the Republican Party.
All right. Yeah, let's get to her lies. Cassidy Hutchinson has a book out. And so, of course, she's being feted by Rachel Maddow, who, by the way, was probably tougher on her than Jake Tapper was.
Yeah.
Which tells you something about where Jake is these days. Cassidy Hutchinson's book is full of lies, one of them to our friend Molly Hemingway. According to the book, here I'll quote from the book. Did Mark already give copies to Molly Hemingway and John Solomon? Philbin asked. Hutchinson describes them as the conservative journalists who the president and Mark were acquainted with. Yeah, he had a few of his Secret Service agents meet Molly and John in Georgetown earlier tonight while you all were in the Oval Office with the boss, she told Philbin. This is about what we're told were 2 binders of top secret information.
Right.
Handed over to Molly Hemingway and John Solomon. Molly took this excerpt and said on X.com last night, Cassidy Hutchinson completely fabricated this story about me. It's a straight-up lie. It never happened. Okay, but that's just she
John
said.
Solomon also responded saying, I did receive some information. All unclassified. And Molly was nowhere near there.
Right. And you'll remember John Solomon was actually part of the president's team with the National Archives to sort of go through all of the Russia collusion documents. That was public knowledge.
Watched All the King's Men that weekend and fabricated this.
And here, but that's just a she said, right? But that doesn't prove anything. Well, how about this lie? We've had Russ Vogt on the show before. He's a great guy. Yeah. He was the director of Office of Management and Budget on the show. And his wife, Mary Vogt.
Mary Vogt is an IWF fellow.
Fantastic
Wonderful
person.
writer.
Love her writing.
Yes.
Absolutely great. And Russ Vogt, if Russ Vogt is famous for anything, Russ Vogt is famous for his confirmation process when Senator Bernie Sanders challenged him about the thesis he wrote in college. I remember this off the top. I'm not looking at anything. I remember this off the top of my head. Do you remember this? When he was going to a Christian university, and he wrote in his college paper that Islam and Muslim was incongruent with the founding documents of the United States government, which is just true.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I mean, there's something, right? And so Bernie Sanders was outraged.
Right.
And he said, are you in some way suggesting that Christianity is superior to Islam? And Russ Vogt says, well, I'm a Christian, and I do think that Christianity is superior to Islam. And that's just my personal
Meanwhile,
faith.
if someone got up and said Islam is superior to Christianity, he would be like, yes,
that's our next vice president.
Bernie, yeah.
So Bernie was like, well, I cannot in good conscience support this person who is completely antithesis to our founding document. It's like, no, actually, there's literally a rule against a religion test, right? And so he's questioning this person because he's a devout Christian. But the point is, the one thing you know about Russ Vogt is that he is a devout Protestant Christian. He's been talking about it, right?
Right.
So here's the excerpt from the book. As a dedicated and faithful Southern Baptist, talking about Mark Meadows, Mark had never drunk an alcoholic beverage in his life until mid-November 2020. By the way, I happen to know for a fact that's not true because I've seen Mark Meadows with a drink before that. Hutchinson says in her memoir, explaining that her former boss consumed his first alcoholic beverage in front of former White House budget director and faithful Mormon, Russ Vogt. Faithful Mormon.
See, she's got Romney on the brain, right? From that clip earlier, she's like, we need to return to the party of Mitt Romney. Is she Mormon?
Russ Vogt, I don't know. Russ Vogt tweeted this and said, I'm also a Southern Baptist. I am not Mormon. Senator Lee
Yes, this is very funny.
Mike Lee from Utah, who is Mormon,
Mormon.
tweeted this back to Russ Vogt and said, "Hey, Russ, why haven't I seen you at the temple recently? What's going on here?"
Russ Vogt, secret Mormon.
Yeah. Cassidy Hutchinson book is called Enough. And
We've
frankly,
had about enough of her.
Yeah, we've had plenty. It's 6:23. All right, coming up, we featured a lot of parents, angry parents, talking to their school board. And I think that we have a pretty good eye for when a parent has hit the mark, who sort of captured the zeitgeist of the moment.
Yes.
Well, in a moment, you're going to hear one of these videos, the latest one, that I think captures exactly where we are right now. You're going to want to hear this next.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On News Talk 105.9 WMAL.
O'Connor and Company.
It's 6:37. You're listening to O'Connor and Company on this Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. And coming up at 7:05, James Rosen is covering the Biden presidency for Newsmax. 7:35, Senator Roger Marshall of Kansas about the looming government funding crisis. Is it a crisis? At 8:05, Bill O'Reilly. And then at 8:35, Liz Wheeler. That's a loaded morning in front of us. And there's Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Have we mentioned that Cassidy Hutchinson appears to be a big fat liar?
Yes, you have.
Really? A lot of
She is a liar.
He's made
My
a mistake.
goodness.
Russ Vogt is a Mormon.
Washington is filled with these women and men like Cassidy who are just looking, for their ticket and for their moment of fame.
It worked for Alyssa Farah, didn't it?
It did. It worked for Alyssa. She's definitely, and she worked with Alyssa, so she's definitely on that playbook there.
I would say that we've got a pretty good eye for angry parents going to school board meetings.
I feel seen.
Well, you should. So does Brandon Michon, right?
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't spend a whole lot of time patting ourselves on the back here, Julie.
Right.
We probably should more. I've sometimes listened to other talk radio hosts. They spend a lot of time talking about themselves.
Oh, God, I know.
Right?
Yes.
I should do that.
That's when
more.
I turn the radio off.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen now. But I do want to point out that this whole idea of playing the audio of angry parents at school board meetings, it really reached a head during the COVID lockdown.
These are the terrorists, according to
the domestic terrorists.
Yes, got it.
That's why we took it so personally, because I feel like we sort of highlighted these more than anyone else, and it really caught fire because we gave voice. And it's not because of me in particular or our production team. It's because the parents and great advocates out in Loudoun County they'd push it toward us. They'd say, "Look what just happened last night."
Yeah.
It's like, "Oh my God, that's fantastic. We got to put it on the air." And then,
And you mentioned Brandon Michon. I mean, perfect example of a dad just, he was spackling his wall and he got off that ladder and came to the school board, looking a little rough. And it was like, just figure it out.
Yes, it's pretty beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to this latest one because this caught our eye. This is actually from about 3 months ago. I want to give credit to Bree Dale, who writes at the Daily Wire. She's got a Substack. She actually lives in Rome, but she covers.
We're jealous of her.
Very jealous. But she first highlighted this video from about 3 months ago. I believe it's in Greensboro, North Carolina. Listen to this mom. We've actually learned a little bit about her because I promoted this on Town Hall yesterday with a video that I produced at Town Hall, and she saw that we didn't know who she was. And she's reached out and given us her name, and we're going to try to track her down and get her on the program. But listen to what she had to say to her school board.
Hello, everyone. I've been coming here for 5 years now, and I was going to talk to you about some practical things that I thought you could change about 3210. But I've changed my mind. I've been really confused over the last 5 years as to why we spend 45 minutes to an hour of every public meeting talking about how great everyone is and how great everything is in the schools, and now I've figured it out.
I just want to pause there because you talk about feeling seen. Yes.
Yeah, we have talked about that. We've watched, there is a rape in a Loudoun County school, and they let that kid go and go to another school and rape again.
Yeah.
And they talk about, let me just talk about my colleague who did this great thing.
Yes. The room is jammed with angry parents who are
yes.
dying to get to the microphone and say, Mr. Chairman, if I could just take a moment to acknowledge what Sheila's chief of staff did the other day.
For Sheila doing her job.
Yeah.
I would just like to acknowledge the fact that you showed up to the meeting. That is just amazing.
The pencils have been sharpened so well
Nicely.
this week in the office, and I really, in fact, we've got a special certificate for you. That is,
Bill,
that's what,
you look great tonight.
They spend all their time doing this.
Yes.
Point of personal order, please.
Yes.
I would like to. It's like. And meanwhile, all the parents are like, you know what? I got a babysitter.
Right, exactly.
I'm trying to get home. And so, all right. So she starts off perfectly.
Perfect.
I figured it out because all these people came here to defend you all from hurtful words. This is obnoxious. Let me just say, there is one goal for the educational system. It should be to prepare children to enter careers to be productive members of society. It is not a counseling session. It is not a self-help area. It is not somewhere to find yourself. And we should not be led by the children, for goodness sake. The children are called dependents for a reason. They depend on us who have fully developed brains. You cannot feel your way through life. The issues that we are talking about, we are bringing you statistics. We are talking about scholastics. We are talking about funding. We are talking about busing. We are talking about trying to figure out how to make our children be as successful as possible. And I am sure that that is your goal. And what we have been called tonight is what they're claiming that we're saying to children. We're having an adult conversation. There are not children in this room. We aren't going into the schools and calling them names. They call us Marxists and hateful and bigots and everything else under the sun. Well, let me tell you, less than 5% of the entire population of North Carolina identifies as LGBTQ. You guys all claim you want democracy. Well, you know what democracy is? It's the majority plus one. It's 50 plus one. You know what? More than 50% of the people in this state claim that they believe in God, Almighty God, who made us male and female. God who made marriage between a man and a woman. God who said that we must protect our children. The fact that we can stand up here and we know, we can brag about all of the wonderful graduations, but we know the statistics. 50% of children did not pass their end of grade test. What are we celebrating? We have children coming up here telling us how horrible the mental health crisis is. Why? Most of us went to public school, and all of our peers are not in mental health crises. We have to ask ourselves, what are we doing to our children? I'm going to say we are discussing things with them that they are not emotionally, intellectually, and morally able to handle. That is what is causing the anxiety. That is what is causing the depression. That is what is causing the confusion. We need our children to be able to be children, to be able to be innocent, to be able to enjoy childhood and not know all of the drama and all of the difficulties in adult life. That is what we want. We want our children to be able to read and write and to think for themselves.
Thank you.
Wow.
And then they hit the timer. That was 3 minutes, by the way, which tells you why in Fairfax and Loudoun they only give you 1 minute. They do not want this dead. Her name is Michelle Morrow. She has actually reached out to me at Town Hall to thank me for highlighting the video yesterday at townhall.com. And
I mean, masterful. Just
it was great.
masterful.
Oh, without notes.
No.
It was just.
She was clear as a bell.
And she hit every mark.
Oh, she did. She did.
And of course, I'm sure that the people at the school were just said, thank you for your comments. Next, please.
Yes.
It's like while they're playing, Scrabble on their phone.
Or they just went next.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. We were told that Joe Biden was going to stand on the picket line with UAW workers. Remember, that was all he was going to. He's going to. What is Biden going to do? Because Trump's talking to them tonight, giving them a speech, encouraging them, standing. Joe Biden was going to go stand with them.
Standing with them on the terms with which they're trying to negotiate. I mean, to be very clear, he's standing with them to make sure that they get a fair share. That is what he's standing with them on. He is standing with them, and we've said this that they get the record profits mean a record contract for UAW. Yeah. That is why he's going. That is what he's standing for.
Yeah, he's standing. This is a president that stands with union workers. He stands with union workers. He stands with the workers. He's going to stand in solidarity. He stands by union workers. He's going to stand with the men of the women of the UAW. That's what Jean-Pierre said in the answer on Tuesday. So on Monday. Yesterday, President Biden. Now, understand, part of the reason why there's a problem with UAW workers right now and the auto manufacturers is this push, the anti-free market push toward electric vehicles.
Yes.
All right. The Biden administration is giving the manufacturers tons of free money that your great-grandchildren are going to have to pay for eventually to change their operations toward electric vehicles.
Yeah.
And this is actually harming the employment situation. It's harming the current status of all of these factories. There's a lot of factors involved, but this is a big part of it.
It hurts the auto industry, too. They're losing money on these vehicles.
And, of course, it's all because carbon emissions is killing the planet.
Yeah, of course.
So here's what Joe Biden did. Joe Biden got into his plane, his giant 747 modified heavy, guzzling, carbon-spewing Air Force One.
Yes.
He flew to Detroit. He landed. He got into a 20-car motorcade and drove around 20 miles an hour.
Do those cars?
No, none
gas?
None of them were EVs. They can't do
interesting.
that. It's a safety
Got it.
problem. You
Got
can't
it.
have an
Oh,
it's got to
got
have.
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he drove to the picket line.
Okay.
He got out of the car.
Uh-huh.
He stood. As we were told he was going to do. Well, he did actually trip. Coming down the steps of Air Force One, he stumbled a little bit.
Yeah.
On the same day that Axios
When
put
are they
it
going to put an escalator in?
or an elevator, one of those.
No, an escalator would be more like
that's probably
descending
true.
the
No,
stairs.
he'd trip off that too.
True.
This is the day that Axios put an article about how there's a team of advisors trying to, basically their entire job is to keep Joe Biden from falling over.
Which is a tough job.
Yeah. He got out of the motorcade, stood on the line for 12 minutes.
12 minutes.
Got back into the car, did the motorcade back to the airplane.
That's longer than he stayed in Dover.
It's impressive.
Yeah.
When he was checking his watch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Got back into the airplane, flew all the way to California, got off, did the motorcade again so he could go to a fundraiser at a California billionaire's home. The California billionaire's entire political agenda is to abolish policing in America.
Excellent.
Now, when he was standing with Jim and Jane Blue Collar on the picket line, he didn't mention the fact that he was about to take money from a person who wants to abolish the police.
Who's responsible for closing 900 CVS stores nationwide. Okay, yeah.
But that was Joe Biden's day yesterday. And then he got back into Air Force One after getting on the motorcade again, spewing carbon everywhere he went to come back to D.C., because you shouldn't be able to drive an F-150. You need to get a Prius.
I have an important question.
Yes.
Was Jill wearing a couch for these appearances? Did you happen to catch that? I didn't.
I don't have that to report right now. I wish I did. It's 6:52.